there, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought we'd do something a little bit different. I decided that we're going to take a ride down the road that I first rode right after I got my MSF certification. I decided I wanted to go down a road that was isolated, lonely, and had some turns in it because I really hadn't had any kind of turning experience. So yeah, let's go take a ride and we'll talk about that road a little bit. So behind me, the direction I'm looking now is McPherson. And this little road was a road that I remembered my grandmother used to take whenever she wanted to come to McPherson from Marquette, where she lived. But first of all, I think I want to say a word of condolence to my Cardo Pack Talk speaker system. Seems like the right speaker has died on me, and so I can only hear music or comms through my left speaker now. That makes me very sad. Well, I haven't even had this system for a year. There's one of the first little turns. There's that dangerous gravel in the road right there. Remember, boys and girls, always look through your turn, use your peripheral. More gravel. There's this road here that I first learned how to drag floorboards because it wasn't that hard to do on a 2003 Kawasaki Vulcan Classic. The floorboards were probably 2 inches lower to the ground than what my current floorboards are. And so getting any kind of a lean, you heard that scraping sound. I kind of grew to love that scraping sound. At first it panicked me. I almost dumped the bike. Because I always heard that it was a horrible thing to do. Don't drag your floorboards. You're going to slide out. The bike's going to slide out from underneath you if you do that. And that's true, but floorboards tend to have a little bit of a give to them. And so you're not automatically on a death slide if you hit the floorboards. But if you do push it hard enough, yeah, you will hit frame and exhaust pipe and things like that. And then, yeah, you do lever the rear tire off the ground, and then you do start sliding uncontrollably. So this particular road right now, because we're so late in the season, looks dead. But during the summertime, it's actually quite beautiful. And like I said, just a few farm families live out here, so you know you don't get a whole lot of traffic. You don't have a whole lot of stuff on the road. But today, for some reason, there's a lot of traffic. You got a car in front of me, got a car behind me that's passing me now. I don't know what's up with that. But you see, you have these real slow turns, 20 miles an hour. If you're a new rider, that's great. You're not under any pressure to try to be fast. And I think it was this road that I very first played with filming any part of my ride. I sent it to my boys. I was on my again, my red 03 Vulcan, and I had a phone in my hand, and I'm sitting there trying to film with my phone while riding at the same time. Not recommended. I'm just going to tell you that right now. That's not recommended. You should not do that. But yeah, all in all, I like this road. It's peaceful, it's calm. No, generally speaking, no traffic pressure. Now, to be fair, you have to say that no traffic pressure is majority of the state of Kansas, you know. That's just the way it is. We are such a flyover state that even aliens don't want to hang out here. They fly over too. Whee! So I guess maybe I'll take this time on this little road here and tell you all a little bit how I got started into this in the first place, since it is so late in the game for me as far as age-wise to be on a motorcycle. And I don't know, I've always loved bikes. I don't know why. You know, maybe it's because I come from that Evel Knievel generation, where we used to watch Evel Knievel do all that crazy stuff on his motorcycles. And I even had Evel Knievel toys. But if I can summarize my relationship with motorcycles, it's been looking from afar, but when I got to touch them, dangerous. That would be about right. And so like, oh gosh, I think my first actual experience with being on a bike was yeah, I'd have to say I was still in high school. I was working at this little two-screen cinema, and a guy that worked there with me from a different high school rode his motorcycle to work one day, and I said, hey, you know, I've always been interested in bikes. Can you show me something about this after work? He's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So he showed me a couple of the basics, like clutch and brakes and, you know, throttle. And then said, hey, well, you know, because at this time it was like 10 o'clock at night. He's like, hey, the parking lot's empty. Why don't you take it around the parking lot for a few turns? I'm like, oh, cool, man. I'm freaking jazzed about that. And at that point in my life, I was deep into hot rods, and I thought I could drive this bike like a hot rod. No, you can't do that. Not at first. So I put the revs a little too high, popped the clutch out. Oh, goodness gracious. That bike went out from underneath me, but I held on for dear life. And I was headed straight for a tree and one of those parking lot curbs, and I was headed for disaster very quickly. I was headed for disaster. I pulled in the clutch, took off enough of the power from the rear tire to where I could get control of it again. And I remember looking down like that and seeing my front tire just miss that curb by inches as I leaned away from it. Well, I got the bike back to him, and he's like, yeah, nah, you're not riding that anymore. You clearly don't know what you're doing. I'm like, I know I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I asked you. And I think then my next experience after that was a friend of mine, Robert. He was just getting into the motorcycle scene. This was after high school. My first son was, gosh, not even, I don't even want to think he was 2, maybe 3 years old at this point. Maybe not even that old. He was walking, and he could understand instructions, and he knew how to disobey instructions. So he wasn't, he wasn't an infant. He was old enough. So my friend had gotten an 883 Hugger Harley Davidson. It was the first year that the Evo's engine platform had come out. And so as a result, he wanted to show it to me. He was very proud of this bike. And I was proud for him. It was a good looking bike, sounded good. He, funny little side story, he he brought it over to the apartment where my wife and I were living at the time with our sons, and the exhaust pipe was still fresh, and the chrome was still fresh, and it had gotten kind of that bluish tint to it. And my son reached for it, and I told him, no, don't reach for that, it's hot. So my son reached for it. It's hot. He burned himself. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. And I didn't have to rebuke him or chastise him. He pretty much did that himself when he burned his hand. Anyways, that was a little side note story. Later on, I went to my friend's house to visit him, and hold that thought. This turn up here, this turn was my first experience to really understand counter steering. Instead of counter steering, I tried to actually turn into the turn like normal, and I ended up over there. So anyway, later on, coming back to my original story, later on I visited my friend at his house, and he asked if I wanted to get on his bike and, check it out. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to. I've always been interested in bikes. And I got onto his bike, and I did this, and I thought I was sitting on it. And it was very clear I was not. And I put it into gear, and the clutch popped out. I swear, I don't think I was trying to engage the clutch. I think I don't know, I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. Just plain simple, I did not know what I was doing. The clutch popped out, and next thing I know, the bike is vertical, and it's because the front tire caught his driveway fence and was climbing up it, and I'm still attached to it. Of course, I'm panicked and freaked out. He's panicked and freaked out. I'm hanging onto the bike for dear life, which means I've got a hold of the throttle good and tight, which means the throttle is just wide open. I think he finally got the kill switch, that red switch there. He finally got the kill switch and killed the bike, or it finally stalled out, one of the two. I don't know. But that was a horrible experience. Needless to say, I never got near his bike again. I look back at that and I'm like, I wonder why I am on a motorcycle now. And so it would be many years later before I even get on a bike again. It would be, well, let me rephrase that. It would be a few years later, because when my second son was, I think it was this when he was born, he would have been an infant. There was this guy at a church that we went to, old hippie biker dude named Jim. He had oh man, I don't even know what year, but it was an old AMF model 1100 Sportster, and it was like almost chopped out. It had a long rake up front, had the 2-tier seat that you see on choppers. It was a wild little bike, but he loved that thing. Just straight piped, loud as can be. And I rode on the back of that just a couple of times, just for fun. No serious happening there. And then the next time would be here in Kansas that I would actually be on a motorcycle for real. And it was one of the many times that we had a non-functioning vehicle when we first got here, first few years of our time here. And we had a friend that his name was Dean. He had a motorcycle, but he hardly ever rode it really. And he said, yeah, you can ride my motorcycle to and from work until you get your car going again. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. I said, look, I've had some pretty sketchy times on motorcycles. Can you show me what I need to do, how to actually ride one? And he was just absolutely dumbfounded about that. I guess he figured it's, you know, kind of like everybody figures, it's like riding a bicycle only with an engine. Yeah, kind of, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So he took me out on an extension of this very road, actually, and showed me some stuff. And for I don't know how long I had that bike in my possession, riding it to and from work with absolutely no gear, safety gear whatsoever, and barely an idea of what I was doing. That was crazy. But as you can see, I'm here and I survived it. I remember a couple of mornings in specific. Oh gosh, I'd have to leave at like 5 in the morning to get to work, and it would be so cold because it was like October, late October. I remember being so frozen by the time I got to work that I would literally have to thaw out next to a heater for like an hour before I could actually do my job. And my bosses were so nice about that. In fact, after this turn here, we're going to cross the bridge, and that'll be where Mr. Dean showed me how to ride his motorcycle. I think his was either an old Yamaha or old Kawasaki. Carbureted. I know this because I ran it out of fuel so many times I had to hit the reserve cock down on the left side of the tank where it normally is. I like this little section, I really do. I'm always paranoid of deer flying out at me though. I've never had it happen, I'm just always paranoid about it. And then after that experience of riding that bike to and from work, I really didn't get on a bike again, and you know, went through some life changes and some you know, just life changes. Moved locations a couple of times, but still stayed in Kansas. And then really the next time I got on a bike was deciding to take my Motorcycle Safety Foundation course and getting that 03 Vulcan Classic. I don't know, like, what was it, like 3 years ago now? 4 years ago now. And that would have been like easily a 30-year gap between experiences on the motorcycle. No, not that long. Not that long. Maybe a 20 to 25 year gap. This stretch of road is where Dean was showing me how to ride his motorcycle when he first let me have it to use to get to and from work. This exact stretch. So yeah, and then, you know, I had that 03 Vulcan for a year. Then I got the 09 Vulcan. The 09 Vulcan 900 Classic. Had hit for a week, got wrecked, and then I was off a bike for a year. And then I got this. And I've had it for 2 years now. So, what got me back on a bike again was actually my wife, Deb. She said, you know, you've made so many sacrifices for the family, you never ask anything in return, and you're always looking at bikes and you're always kind of daydreaming about them. She says, why don't you just get one? That's all I needed. That's all I needed. And so I went to MSF and started riding. Anyways, that was my first road off of MSF. From here, if we take a left and head that way, we end up heading towards Marquette. And it actually ties into that road behind me at that four-way intersection. I suppose I could show you that, but that might be for a different video. So anyway, that's that. Hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned, there'll be more coming.